Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Angeles Forest. Summer is here. Sunny days ahead. We're not going to get rain for 6 months, so we're going to have a nice summer of reviewing cars. This is the BMW M3 competition. Zack and I had a go in the M4 manual non-competition, 2 months ago?
Yep, regular, rainy
2 months
day.
ago, and it rained the whole day. So not only did we not get to really explore the performance of the car, we didn't love it. We didn't love the car, frankly.
No.
Johnny Lieberman was going on and on and on, blowing up my text messages about how I had to drive the competition. It was so much better. So it makes all the difference in the world. So here we are, the M3 competition. Competition models available on M3 and M4. You can get it comp or non-comp. You want a manual? Non-comp only.
Non-comp only.
Comps come with the 8-speed automatic. It's not a dual clutch anymore. It's a full automatic now.
Right.
And we'll show you the programming. Programming's pretty good. The reason they did that is because M3s, starting at the end of 2021, will have optional all-wheel drive.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Which will be cool with the selectable modes. And
selectable mode.
Yeah, I mean, it expands the M3 to the Colorado climate.
But it also takes my favorite part of the M5 and puts it in the M3, because
Sure.
now you can do snow stuff and drift stuff.
Sure. It has a 3-liter inline 6, the S58 engine, which you can get in the M4, also the X3M. In this, guys, it makes 503 horsepower, 479 pound-feet, which is a plus 30 horsepower and a plus 73 versus the non-comp. The way they do that, cranking up the boost.
Yeah.
They turn the boost up by 6 to 24.7 PSI in this car.
It's the ones and zeros of hot rodding.
Right. This car's 4.6 inches longer than the F80 M3.
Yeah.
Which means it's gotten bigger, which is bad.
It's 100 pounds heavier, I think.
Yeah. It is within very small measurements of the E39 M5.
True.
And so, in my opinion, I mentally compartmentalize this car in a completely different place than the M4. Because the M4 is a big coupe, feels huge.
Yeah, it
because
does.
I'm in
It
a
feels
coupe.
very, very big.
When I'm in a sedan and I really care about back seat room and the door proportions are different because you've got 4 of them, and my expectations are different because you're going to be carrying people in all 5 seats.
Yeah, then you don't mind the size as much.
I don't mind
Absolutely.
the size.
It's only a few inches shorter than the E39 M5, but it's actually lighter.
Right.
And it's lighter than all of its competition, which, yes, this is a heavy car, but everything else is actually heavier.
Right. It does weigh 3850. 0 to 60 in 3.6, quarter mile in 11.5. It has adaptive suspension and adjustable everything.
Yeah.
And we will talk about the options and all of those other goodies at the other end of our drive. You've got the hot buttons for your M modes. I have programmed M1 for Sport Plus powertrain, comfort shocks, sport steering, and sport adjustable brakes. Here we go. Hey folks, I'm sure you remember it because it used to be on this channel, but the Smoking Tire podcast is still a thing and killing the game over on its own YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Smoking Tire Podcast, and whatever other audio podcast hosting platform you like to download the show from. We've got automotive journalists, comedians, actors, funny people, professional people, insidery people, and of course, our very cool friends, and just me and Zack. Lord, take me back to 1997 in the F1 Ferrari transmission.
I would like my shifts to be delayed and brutal, please.
A lot of times, if we review a car, we've got 20 or 30 more minutes on further reflection later in the podcast. You can get it in audio, you can get it on video, you can get it live, or you can get it later. So make sure you subscribe wherever it is you like to download these things. Now enjoy this video. This one's rear-wheel drive, so you can light them up.
Indeed, and it wants to quickly because it makes a lot of torque, starting, full torque's at like 2,000 RPM.
Right, but this engine, the S58, has a much better torque curve than the older engine, which gave you everything right then and became very twitchy, especially with a tune. This has a much more even power band.
Yeah, it feels like a curve, even though it gives you full torque so early.
Right.
The other one, I think, was even earlier, and just the way it delivered it, it was just like walking into a wall.
Have you noticed that this is very, very fast?
Yeah, when I drove it yesterday and realized how fast it was, both in forward and laterally.
Extremely fast. And I really like that it doesn't have super wide front tires that dart all over the place. The steering is very smooth. It doesn't get ruined by the road surface.
Well, the EPS systems are also really good at dampening those kinds of effects. So it's that balance they're all trying to find of communicate to your fingers without shaking your hands to bits or tramlining everywhere.
Right. Despite being a torque converter auto, the downshifts are very smooth. They don't upset the chassis at all, and I really like these carbon fiber shifter paddles. They actually kind of remind me of a video game setup, which I don't necessarily think is a compliment, but I do like how they feel.
And they look really good.
They do look
a lot of the stuff in this car looks really good. I mean, the color choice for the leather is up to your own interpretation, what you like, but I think it shows that you can do a lot of things with this interior in terms of color palette, and that is cool.
Either this color or this interior would look just fine without the other one. Together, it's an absolute disaster.
If you really like tennis sneakers,
if you really like if you're Andre Agassi in 1992, or if you have just won the Miss Brazilian Bum Bum contest, this is perfect for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's talk about driving. The balance is so good. I mean, I'm not breaking traction, obviously, but I really am enjoying that it doesn't feel nose heavy. It doesn't feel tail happy. It feels like the weight distribution really helps me control the car without it wanting to do anything that, I don't want it to do.
Yeah, and it's 53-47 front rear weight distribution, and they've done a couple of things with this car versus the last gen one. There's cross bracing everywhere. They've reinforced underneath the chassis from middle to rear. There's more subframe connectors in the front. They connected the bulkhead to the lower subframe. Like, there are so many lattice bars making the whole thing stiffer and stiffer and stiffer.
Yeah. Something that drives me insane, not the fact that the gauges are digital, but the fact that the tack is just this very thin, maybe 1 inch wide bar. It's not a needle. So the steering wheel, to put the steering wheel where I want it, it blocks part of the gauge, which if you had a full-size needle, I would just look at the middle of at a different part of the needle.
And the gauge, it gets thinner toward red line.
Right.
So there's actually less and less for you to see as you get closer to red line, which is the opposite of what you'd want.
Now, in fairness, there are also shift lights. So as I get closer to red line, the center of the cluster turns yellow, orange, and red. So I'm not going to accidentally slam the rev limiter. But there's a lot of reasons to look at the tack besides when am I going to hit red line. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that right now, as I'm sitting comfortably, once we pass 4,000 RPM, I have no idea what the revs are.
Yeah,
the steering wheel is completely blocking it.
Because if you're doing a track day, like, you might think, okay, I'm downshifting there at 5, or I might brake at the 5, and now you can't see that.
Now you don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what you think, Zack? There's a real problem with these seats. And there's actually 2 real problems with these seats. And it's not how they look, because they look cool.
They do look cool.
They do
if this
look
was a different color, like 8-year-old me, even what 39-year-old me is like, the carbon, like, they're rad looking.
They look cool.
And you can pickpocket someone from if you're sitting in the back.
The look is not the problem. The problem is, if these cars were in like a GT3, let's call it the M4 GT3, whatever they would call that super track day special, well, that would make some sense. But crawling over these bolsters, these very hard carbon bolsters, and this lump where your balls don't go, crawling over that to get in and out of this car that you would use as a daily driver car, it's just annoying and terrible.
Well, this kind of is their GT3. It's the competition, to be fair. But
no, it's not. That's just like a little faster. This isn't the GT. There's no cage. There's no cage,
but otherwise it's got pretty much everything else. But I will agree with you that to get into these, you drop in almost the way you do in the McLaren with their crazy buckets.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really deep bolster, and it's very hard. And I think the foam padding could be a little bit more forgiving.
Like, there is a little bit of adjustment. Like, you can adjust how tight it's grabbing you, but
they're great track seats.
Yeah.
But
But the regular seats we had in the other one were fine.
Yes.
And they don't cost $3,800. These do save 21 pounds, but who cares? I mean, literally, who cares in this car about 21
If I was going to daily this, I would much rather have the other seats. The other
I wouldn't
seats
spend $3,800 on seats that are just uncomfortable. All right.
Okay.
Zachary, mob, please. Do you like your settings or my settings?
Yeah, I'll go with your settings. yeah, it'll light them up in the back.
For sure.
Man, it's quick. The shift lights are key. Yeah, I can see the tack, but I'm looking at the shift lights.
The shift lights, for this, you need the shift lights. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it revs up quite quickly.
Right. I also think that I do agree with Johnny, and it pains me to say it, that the engine is a little better mated to the automatic than it is to the manual.
I agree.
It bothers me to say that, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, you have eight speeds instead of 6, so the gearing's a little bit shorter, and it's so fast. When cars are this fast these days,
you can't
keep
up.
You can't keep up. I like having both my hands on the wheel right now. Like, yes, I like driving a manual, but at a certain pace, I want both hands on the wheel, and then it's a different sensation. It feels more like race car. The steering is very light, not in a bad way, kind of in a McLaren way. Real accurate, really agile, light feel, light in the hands, but man, like each millimeter of movement on the steering wheel is moving the front wheels.
I like the last steering wheel a little better. I don't like the actual shape of the wheel as much on this one. The last one I liked a little better.
You know, they're sticking with the chunky theme.
Yeah. The rim is fine. The center isn't as attractive anymore. I think it had a round center before.
Yeah, I did like that.
Beautiful spokes cyclist.
Yeah.
And what I do like is, and this is not an M3 thing, this is a make-wide thing, with BMW, they've kept the iDrive knob. You know, you've got your main primary scrolling knob here.
Yep.
But they've also made the screen a touchscreen. And so what that means is the things about your use that really require a knob, you can use the knob. The things about that it would be better with a touchscreen, you can use that. So
and there's a volume knob.
And a volume knob. It allows you ways out.
Yes. I like it. And I think this whole menu system has gotten more intuitive, or I'm just more comfortable using the puck. Like, it's pretty quick to get around.
It's not bad. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it's used to be like 5 years ago it was a nightmare. Now it's like good. The
grip is great. The grip I think is like 1.03, which is like Z06 carbon territory from like 8 years ago.
And this has the optional 20-inch wheels, which you get with the comp. And if you get ceramics, you need them. Our last tester did not have ceramics and had the smaller wheels, right?
Yes.
And so the good news is the ride quality is not ruined. The ride quality's fine.
Around town, I found it rode well. It rode how you should expect a car that says M3 competition to ride. Like, it's
firm,
stiff.
And I wasn't bothered.
No. And it's only over crack streets of LA where you really feel it. Otherwise, I found it to be very comfortable. And the balance, like you said, is great. And the communication from this carbon seat to me of like what the back is doing is really nice. Like, this is an easy car to drive quickly, which is what you want from an M3.
It's also what I like about it is, like, for instance, I don't like to use start-stop mode. If I turn start-stop off mode, it stays off. When I get out of the car, restart it, get back, it stays off. Same with, I like the exhaust baffles open. So when you, not M modes, but when you leave it, when you choose a setting, start, stop, off, active exhaust on, it stays there. You don't have to do this.
You're saying.
Yeah, you don't have to remember your personal cheat code to set the car up every time you get in it. Mercedes learned their lesson by putting that one individual button.
Right.
You used to have to do the 8-button Billie Jean.
You get in and it was up, down, left, right, BA start.
Right, you don't have to do that anymore. So
Nintendo jokes. Any of you over 40? No? Right. Okay.
But to me, mentally, this car is in a much better position than the coupe. The coupe's too big for a coupe. It's the wrong size.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also I don't think either of us are really into that executive coupe thing.
Well, but the M3 wasn't supposed to be the executive coupe. You own an M3. Would you call your car an executive coupe?
No, because it's small.
Right. So BMW. The good thing is they make an M2, right? Still, which is basically the size of your E46.
Correct.
And they make this, which is basically the size of the E39 M5. So those cars that we want them to be making, they're still making. They're just called
have
something.
two different names.
They're
They
just
split-
called
they
something
split
else.
the atom, right.
So whether this is a revival of the E39 M5 as the ultimate sedan, or whether we want to split hairs, with what it's called, I don't know. I don't fully agree with Johnny because this car still has some issues that the other car had. The competition didn't solve all of it. But
aesthetic issues or other issues?
the nose is heinous.
Right.
I mean, nothing is going to fix that, although I think this looks better than the coupe in all the other ways, the sedan.
The proportions of the doors
proportions
look
of the doors
pretty
are right.
good.
Yeah. And I like how it drives. I do like how it drives.
Yeah.
It drives nice. I'm offended by the nose.
Overall, the F80 was a much better looking car.
Yeah.
That was a really good looking generation of the M3, 4-door or 2-door.
But I'm glad we got to have this experience with the competition because it does feel like a different car.
Yeah, it does. It drives great.
It does feel like a different car, and I think even the M3 sedan with a manual, that could be cool. That could be fun.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel as tight as this, but it's a pair of coilovers away from doing it, really.
Right. So thanks to BMW for letting us have a go in this M3, and thank you to you guys for watching, and we'll see you later.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.